Okay, let's have a look at solving a quadratic by completing the square. Before we look at solving the quadratic, let's look at the first part of completing the square. So in this question, we've got x squared plus 4x and we're asked to complete the square. So what does that mean? So we could probably visualize this. X squared is just a square with side x, and 4x is just a rectangle with side x and side 4. Let's neaten that up. Right, so here we go. If that is x and that is x, we have got x squared, and if that is 4, we have got 4x. As you can see, that's a rectangle. What I could do here is split this in half and place this rectangle underneath here. Let's neaten that up. Okay, I've split that into two. I'm going to move this side over here. There we go. So this was 4. We've halved it, so now it's 2. So that means that's also 2. So here we have 2x, and here we have 2x. That's x plus 2, and that is also x plus 2. As you can see, the square is incomplete. So our completing the square is by including that last section that is missing. So we are missing 4 in this case, because 2 squared is 4, and that is a complete square. You might notice that the x plus 2 multiplied by the x plus 2 is just x plus 2 squared. And if I expand that, I don't actually get this. So I'll expand this. So now I've expanded it, you'll notice that I've got this extra 4 at the end, and I haven't got it here. So x plus 2 all squared is not the same as x squared plus 4x. However, x plus 2 squared minus 4 is the same as x squared plus 4x. So therefore, x squared plus 4x in completed square form is x plus 2 squared minus 4. That's the completed squared form. And let's have a look at how we can go from here to here without having to draw a diagram. Okay, so I'll look at it through this example first. So our aim here is to factorise this. So what we do is we know we're dealing with a quadratic in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So we know that will have a double bracket with an x in both sides. So in this case, I've got my bracket. I know I'm looking to complete the square. I want it squared, so I put the x in that side. What I do here is I half b. So that is plus 4, so half of plus 4 is plus 2. And then what I do is I square half of b and I subtract it. And that is completing the square. Let's look at another one. So in this case here, we've got c in play as well. So not just a and b, we've got c as well. Let's start with the brackets. We bring the x down, we half the value of b, it's a plus 6, we half it, therefore we get a plus 3, that is squared. The b, half of b squared, well 3 squared is 9, so we're going to subtract the 9, and then we have that little bit left over, so we subtract the 4, we now neaten that up, and there we go. So let's put this into some sort of algebraic rule. Let's start with the ax squared plus the bx plus the c. So step 1 is we start with our bracket. We know it's going to be squared. We have the x in here. So in there goes plus b over 2. And then we are subtracting b over 2 squared. And we're going to add c on the end. It's a bit easier to learn when we practice it through questions. So let's have a look. Okay, so in this question we're asked to show the following. Show these two in the form bracket x plus p bracket squared plus r. That is just another way of saying complete the square. So I've left a bit of a summary of the rules over here. Hopefully that makes it a bit easier to see. We're going to complete the square here. Again, I'll do it underneath. We know we're going to have a bracket and it's going to be squared. We're going to have x in there. We're having half of b, which in this case is plus 5. And what we're going to do is subtract half of b squared. 5 squared, which is 25, and we're going to subtract 25. And then finally, we're going to add c to the end, subtract c, and that is the same as saying x plus 5 squared minus 31. Let's have a go at the second one. Again, we start with the bracket, x goes in. We have got a minus 12 here, so half of minus 12 is minus 6. That becomes squared. So we are looking at minus 6 squared. Well, minus 6 times minus 6 is plus 36. So we are still subtracting that, and we're going to add the 4 on the end. So that becomes, and that's completing the square. Okay, let's bring all this together. So we're going to solve this equation here by completing the square and leaving our answer in the form a plus minus the square root of b. We start by completing the square. We start with our brackets. We know they're going to be squared. We know there's an x. We have got half of b, so we have minus 5 inside the brackets. 5 squared, minus 5 squared is 25. So we're going to minus 25, and we're going to add the 3, and that gives us 0. So our aim now is to solve this. So we have x minus 5 squared is equal to, well, minus 25 plus 3 is minus 22. If we then add 22 to both sides, that becomes 0 and that becomes 22. So there we go. So now I need to square root both sides. So I square root this side, that gets rid of that square. I need to square root the 22. It's really important that you remember when you're square rooting, you get a positive and negative answer. So I'm going to put a plus and a minus there to show me that I'm getting a positive answer and a negative answer. Bit of a clue there as well to help you. So now I want x on its own. Get rid of the 5 by adding 5 to both sides. X is now equal to 5 plus minus the square root of 22, and that is solved. The last thing to do is to write both answers out. So x is equal to 5 plus the square root of 22, or x is equal to 5 minus the square root of 22. So we have two solutions there. Let's do one more just to make sure we're comfortable with this. Okay, let's tackle this last question. We're going to solve this by completing the square and then putting our answer in this format. Using the same principle as before, open the brackets, we know the squared, we know the x is there, half of b. So now we square this and subtract it, so we have got 25 over 4, and that is equal to 3. We now want to get rid of the squared by square rooting everything, so we're left with, and don't forget to square root the 3. I'm going to add the square root of 25 over 4 to both sides. I can add these together by making sure both have the same denominator of 4. So just so you've got that, 3 is the same as saying 12 over 4. And if I add 12 over 4 to 25 over 4, I get 37 over 4. So this becomes x plus 5 over 2 plus or minus the square root of 37 over 4. So now I subtract 5 over 2 from both sides. That gets rid of that one. I'm left with minus 5 over 2 because I subtracted it from both sides, plus or minus the square root of 37 over 4. And they are my solutions. There are two solutions there. X is equal to minus 5 over 2 plus the square root of 37 over 4, or x is equal to minus 5 over 2 minus the square root of 37 over 4. So we have solved this quadratic by completing the square. I hope you got something out of this. Please like and subscribe, and the next video is on solving quadratics by using the formula.